Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Rob Maness Show here live. And we will be taking your comments today as we look at all of our social media channels. So please feel free to make comments, and our guest today and I will address them. And the title of today's show is Leaders Making Moral and Ethical Decisions Under Stress. That's it. That's the show today. It is a simple concept, a very simple concept. And all we need to do is do it consistently, but it's very difficult. In my personal experience over more than 3-decade military career in peace and war, plus as a utility operations safety and training director, leading in natural disasters like Hurricane Isaac, the situations I found myself in have driven thousands and thousands of decisions that I needed to get right every time, or my teams would fail. Under the stresses of combat or other life and death situations, the importance of ethical and moral decision-making increases exponentially. That's why we train and grow leaders over time and through various positions to produce a leader that can get this job done. Even when faced with enemies trying to kill you, over the last week, we've seen literally dozens of military officers and senior non-commissioned officers, most of them very senior, even the top 2 enlisted leaders of the Army and the Marine Corps, make poor decisions to talk from their official government social media accounts to verbally attack and attempt to intimidate first a member of the media who dared to criticize a military policy, and in just the last 24 hours, military personnel in uniform marching on an elected official's office because they didn't like what the politician said. My friends, these actions are the results of poor decisions by each person involved in them. They are prohibited by the law here in the United States. It doesn't matter what the subject of the criticism or comments was, contrary to what the woke media says. What matters is the American taxpayer has invested millions of dollars in these decision makers, and they still made these unethical and immoral decisions to take these actions. The effect, what was it? It was a cascading failure all the way from the Secretary of Defense's office to the lowest enlisted ranks of the basic standard that General George Washington set when he handed his commission voluntarily back to the Continental Congress. That in the United States of America, civilians control our military and always will. Today, we're going to talk to our guest about this failure because he's got direct experience making ethical and moral decisions successfully under fire when faced with leaders above him who could not or would not make the right decision. John Teagan brings over 13 years of high-profile security and force protection expertise in contract and government agencies, along with his military experience as a United States Marine sergeant, to the table as a security expert and a leader under very difficult circumstances. You may remember him on September 11th, 2011. Islamic militants attacked the American diplomatic compound in Benghazi, Libya. Quiet and precise, Tig was the most experienced annex security team member, defying a stand-down order, which he had to do. He took his team and rushed into burning buildings to defend the consulate and fought arm in arm in defense of the annex, holding off the radical Islamic terrorists until CIA employees could be safely evacuated. And we all know that we lost 4 Americans in that fight, including the ambassador. Mr. Teagan co-authored 13 Hours, the inside account of what really happened in Benghazi, that book, and was a technical advisor on the movie later produced. John Teagan, welcome to the Rob Maness Show.
Thank you, sir.
How are you?
Appreciate it. Doing good. It's kind of, having fun computer stuff.
Yeah. Well, folks, we had some technical difficulties as we were coming on, but that's not unusual. This is a new system on our side, and so we learn how to talk our guests through this. John, it's good to have you with us. I appreciate you taking the time. I know you're a pretty busy guy, but in my opening monologue, most of it was about decision making under stress and doing the legal, the ethical, and the moral thing. Of course, I have over 30 years of military experience, starting as a E1 and going up to 06. So most of my direct experience under stress was in that environment, but I was also on the utility side and working for an energy corporation during hurricanes and those kind of things as a senior leader. So I understand making those kind of decisions. But here in the last 7 days, we've had general officers, 4-star generals, make piss poor decisions by attacking Tucker Carlson, a member of the media, because he criticized the president's military policy. And they did it from government accounts. That's really bad decision making. Talk to my viewers a little bit about your experience in that, because that day in Benghazi had to be a tough one to go up against your superiors who were not making the decision, the call that needed to be made. And you had to make the call because you were the leader on the ground in the moment.
Yeah, we were. And, the big difference is there wasn't military. It was actually, CIA employees. Yeah. A little bit different. Consequences are definitely different because we don't work directly for him, even though we work for the agency. But he might be in charge of the base, but he's not our boss. It's kind of hard to explain that way. So even though he can't fire us, but he can just say they can't come back to our base. That's about the only thing that could have happened to us for disobeying the stand-down order. And yes, there was a stand-down order given to us, well, at least to me. And, knowing Bob's history, that's what he meant. He was not going to allow us to leave that compound unless we took it upon ourselves, which we did, to leave. So, but yeah, I mean, the military, man, it's almost going, instead of being a military unit, it's almost a social experiment now. It seems like that's where it's going to. I mean, they're changing regulations to appease a certain group of people so they can pass, so they can be a part of the elite, the teams and stuff. They're breaking something that wasn't broke. They should have made it better instead of breaking it.
And the social experiment thing, a lot of people hear that, and I know what you mean, and I think most people understand it. But that same argument was used when Harry Truman had to desegregate the military. But it has nothing to do with race, even gender, or it has everything to do with mission readiness, right? And how that's impacted. When we desegregated because of race, it didn't really impact the mission because you weren't talking about mission readiness from the perspective of the individuals that we were trying to unite and make equal. Here it's different, isn't it? I mean, it's very different.
They're lowering the standards. The biggest one that I know of from several Rangers, the females that passed Ranger School didn't truly pass Ranger School. They dumbed down the qualifications so they could actually pass. So technically, they never really passed. And it's, again, what's going to happen is they're going to continuously do that. And again, it's a social experiment. They're going from elite to subpar, really. I mean, we're battling against countries that, like China and Russia. They're not experimenting with women in special forces and stuff like that. They're experimenting in how to kill us and how to take us over is what they're doing. There's women that are already involved in special forces that are going out there with them doing certain jobs. So again, why lower? They want to join the SEALs, they want to join the Rangers, they want to join even the paratroopers. Why lower the standards? Make them pass the exact same standards as everyone else.
Yeah. The issue from that perspective isn't that, hey, we shouldn't have women in the military. I've been attacked because I've called out the senior leadership from the POTUS on down, the president on down on the military side for doing this attack on Carlson. And his point wasn't that, hey, it's women in the military are wrong. That's totally incorrect, and it's a media talking point that was created out of thin air when they formulated the attack. And it seems the military leadership guys, I mean, a four-star general, Army General Robert Funk, I think he's the TRADOC commander, that's the training command, folks, for the entire United States Army, tweeted out. The Sergeant Major of the Army, the Sergeant Major of the Marine Corps, tweeted out attacking Carlson by name from government accounts. That is totally inappropriate. It's totally inappropriate. And this discussion has nothing to do with women in the military. You know what? I was a squadron commander of a bomber combat squadron in the United States Air Force and took it to war. And the women in my squadron were exceptional warriors, but they were built for that. You know, we weren't asking them to take PT tests that were lower in standards than my PT tests in order to do that job. And that's the issue. You know, I don't care if women are in special forces, to be honest with you, as long as they can meet the same physical and mental and stamina standards that everybody else has had to meet in order to qualify. That's the issue, right?
That is the issue. And that's the only issue that I think a majority of the military even cares about. Veteran or active duty, stop lowering the standards to the lowest common denominator. You know, if anything, increase the standard so maybe even less people can pass. Because again, and then you have the military get the highest level military acting again like little teeny boppers by attacking a news anchor, which is again freedom of speech. That's what he's there for. He's there to pretty much inform us of what's going on within the government, because obviously there's people that talk to Fox News or even CNN that they can tell us, where, you know, the brass, they ain't going to tell us a damn thing if they don't have to. I mean, it's so for them to go after him, it's kind of scary. And then I didn't know about the National Guard in uniform going and marching on I don't care, Democrat or Republican's office. That should never, ever happen. Ever.
Yeah, I didn't name the elected official, but it was a member of the House of Representatives in the Republican Party. But you're right, John. It doesn't matter what political party they were in. You know, what we've seen is this very quick devolution of a lack of discipline and really damage to good order and discipline, what we in the military call it. And that is troops that obey their civilian authorities and take an oath to defend the Constitution of the United States. And part of that Constitution is this thing called the First Amendment that guarantees freedom of speech and freedom of the press. Now, people have said that Carlson was not the freedom of the press because he's not a press guy. He's an entertainment. That's not correct. He's a commentator, and the word "the press" came from political commentators using printing presses to put pamphlets out in the Revolutionary War. Is part of where that term came from. So he's exactly what the founding fathers were talking about. And it's appalling. I mean, I'm still in a state of stunned shock is the only way I can describe it, that a 4-star general and 2 of the senior enlisted people of our services would attack this guy by name from government accounts. And it went downhill because, I mean, you saw it all the way down to, if you go back and look at the tweets and those kind of things, it goes all the way down to probably young E1, E2s as information officer type folks working in the comm shop, tweeting out crazy stuff, even attacking a citizen. In one case, a citizen just tweeted back at him and said, "Hey, why don't you focus on China instead of Tucker Carlson?" And they called the guy a boomer, which is a pejorative term. I'm from that generation that I get called a boomer occasionally, and that's a pejorative term, just like the N-word, in my opinion. And they intend it that way. So
I wonder what they're doing up there. I mean, again, exactly why are they wasting their time going after anybody in the press anyways, no matter what they say? I mean, it's for the stuff that's been said by CNN about the military. You never heard them coming out and attacking CNN before. But again, why would they even open their mouth? It's like the discipline within the military is going to hell. And again, like you're saying, that went from the top and it's going to feed all the way down the bottom. They're going to say, "Well, you did it. Why can't I?" I mean, you're the sergeant major of the Marine Corps. You're the general of the Army, and you saying you can go out and do it on an official platform, but I can't even do it on my own platform. Or again, going back to the National Guard, every single one of those members marching on that congressperson's office should be court-martialed.
They sure should, and an ethics violation filed against the congressman from Guam that led them and encouraged them to do that, because that's a violation of ethics to try to intimidate a fellow member of Congress, any elected official, using a military force, armed or not, but in uniform, making political communication to an elected official is just absolutely, it's foreign. It's foreign to the United States military. You know, it's even foreign really to folks that have served in government like you too. You were in the Marine Corps too, but you also served as a security person in the CIA and other things. It just gives me great pause that we've gone down this road that is a dangerous road. You know, the military in Myanmar has taken over the government because they didn't like what the government was doing and saying. And look, I'm not a Joe Biden fan, and I don't really like what he's doing. I just had to pay $75 to fill up my truck with fuel the other day, which when Trump was in office, it was about $59 or $60 on average. So it's already having a negative effect. But that gives me no reason, if I was in the military, to criticize him, just like I didn't criticize President Obama. I was a colonel, a wing commander under President Obama, and had him at my base. Vice President Biden too. Now President, both of them. I would never criticize them because that's not my role in the military. But it seems like we have some very senior people that have really decided that their role in uniform and in government channels is to take on the media and take on elected officials and even take on citizens. I don't know what the hell's going on.
Yeah, it's scary. I mean, knowing that now they're going to leave the National Guard around the Capitol for another 2 months, I think is what I read, 2,500. Like, what's this threat that they keep making up? I mean, where are these groups? Why don't you name the groups? Why can't you say? They always say, "Oh, an unconfirmed group." Like, okay, who is it? You know, it's not gonna be the Oath Keepers because they're good. They got the spotlight on them. You know, it's not gonna be the Proud Boys. They got the spotlight on them. So, you know, it's these other 3% groups, but the Oath Keepers is kind of, and the Proud Boys are one of the two biggest groups in the country, from that I know of. You know,
they are, and I don't really see them as terrorists, but there are obviously some members of those groups that have been rolled up in these arrests that we're going to have to see what the heck's going on with those individuals. I think
that's what I'm saying. They're individuals. It's just like, if, again, why don't we blame the whole PD department, fire department with members of those organizations that were there also? Why don't we hold the whole entire fire department and police departments accountable for those two people's, you know, their actions for being there too, then, instead of just the Oath Keepers and Proud Boys as a whole, when you just have a couple members going there. So again, if you're going to hold one group accountable for having one or two people there, you need to hold them all accountable and label them all the same thing. So you're really going to label the fire department and the police departments as, you know, terrorist organizations? No, because it's for them to do that. It goes back to really lack of leadership and just pandering to the public, and in using this to have, again, the National Guard stay there, because now we have a big threat from these unnamed organizations.
Yeah, you mentioned a lack of intelligence, specific threat intelligence. You're a very experienced security person outside of the United States that does, you know, you've done this for a living from a non-military position, but still, you know, you've worked with the Marines that secure embassies and those kind of things, I'm sure. But what type of intelligence threat would they really need to have to justify the actions they're taking to occupy Washington, D.C. on what I call Fort Pelosi?
Yeah, honestly, I don't think they're operating on any kind of intelligence, you know, because if there's a known domestic terrorist organization, 3% group, that's a threat. And okay, if you're here in the country, go pay them a visit then. I mean, they're using this stuff just as a gimmick so they can have the National Guard there. And I'm going to say they're just passing bill after bill, and they're using that. I think they're afraid that people are going to get pissed off all these executive orders that Biden's doing. And again, I think they're in fear just because of that alone. And that's why they're leaving the National Guard there, because they really, but the good thing is they fear the people, and they should fear the people. We shouldn't be fearing them. They should be fearing us.
That's the whole idea behind the Second Amendment, isn't it?
It is the whole idea. So it's the whole idea of the way the country was built by our forefathers. It wasn't for us to fear the government, and it was, again, for the government just to fear us in general, because they saw what, throughout history, what happened when governments came into power that did not fear the people. They would just, run them over and rule them like slaves.
Yeah, I know a lot of people that say the same thing you just said, John, and that is that they're keeping them there because they're taking all these executive actions, and they're passing bills that really, they're fooling themselves if they think the majority of the American people are going to agree with a tax increase. We haven't had a tax increase in this country since 1993, I think, under the Bill Clinton administration. And now we're talking about doing that. The executive orders have driven gas prices up. And what did gas price increases hurt? They hurt the working poor first. And this political party that's now in charge of everything in Washington, they say they're for the working poor. And all I see is that they take actions that hurt them. And you know what? They think that the MAGA types are angry at them and those kind of things. Wait till they get the MAGA and the BLM types all angry at them. Then they're going to really need to be afraid, because you know what? I'm for the Second Amendment for everybody. I don't really care what the color of your skin is. And there are groups of people like Black Lives Matter and the 3%ers, for instance, that could come together and take these folks on if they don't get their act together and stop ruling like a bunch of tyrants. Don't you think?
Oh yeah, I mean, I do. I think some groups are starting to come together. I mean, there's some that disbanded and joined as a bigger unit because of what's going on. I mean, they're driving everything in that direction. Unfortunately, I mean, he comes in. I mean, the first day in office, he cancels the pipeline, but then approves one overseas between Russia and Turkey or something like that. Like, they can have the oil pipelines over there, but we can't have them here.
It's crazy. They just terminated a lease, a huge lease for the state of Louisiana, where I've spent my post-retirement years. And oil and gas is a tremendous impact on the economy there. And the federal government just terminated a Gulf of Mexico lease that's going to destroy the oil and gas business in the state of Louisiana. And of course, it'll have a wider effect too. And I just don't understand what they're up to. I mean, we've got thousands of kids coming across the southern border, and they're overflowing the facilities that even the Trump administration built, the permanent facilities that they built in a greater capacity than they ever thought they would need. It's like some people are saying America First policy has become America Last policy under Joe Biden. And if they're worried about a threat building and radicalization of their citizens, then they should just keep taking these kind of actions, shouldn't they?
Yeah, I mean, it's not looking good at all. I mean, it's, the day after, I think it was up here in Denver, the day after Biden won the election, I mean, they're coming out saying the same people, the Antifa BLM members came out and said, kept marching, down with the USA, no more USA. Again, they don't care who's in office. A lot of people don't realize that. The BLM, really Antifa, they don't care who's in office. They really want to just destroy the very foundation of this country.
Yeah, that's a nice segue, because my next question for you is, I know that you have some direct experience with Antifa and BLM violence out there in Colorado specifically, maybe even more than I'm aware of. But what did you think when Joy Behar on The View said just the other day that Antifa is a myth? They don't even exist. It's phantoms.
Well, that's kind of funny because they got flags, they got their own groups, they got their own little command structure. They're kind of more like terrorist sleeper cells. So they don't have like card carrying members. Well, some groups don't, but some do. I mean, you can actually look up like Colorado Springs Antifa. Again, Portland, Oregon Antifa. You can look them up. So if they're just a myth, an idea, then why can you look them up and actually join that group? Just because they don't have, a member ID and a card doesn't mean it's not real. Again, I mean, we had, up here in Denver, we had a Lee Keltner who got shot by, we did a Patriot muster, and, 9 News brought an unlicensed, non-professional security guard and ended up killing somebody that slapped him in the face. So
Wow.
again, and he was known to be around a lot of the Antifa protests, and he was involved in some of the violent protests that was going on up in Denver, and even the guy Elliott, who was involved in instigating the whole entire thing, the same thing. He was seen at Bernie rallies, Bernie rallies, starting fights and stuff like that, and he, again, he would come up to us and he would actually try to start a fight with some females, anybody of color. He'd call them a house brother, and again, just sit there and want to fight with them.
Wow.
I
remember reporting on that incident, and the gentleman that was killed was a veteran, and it's just shocking that the media in this country and organizations in this government, like the FBI, which isn't worth the spit you can spit on them, in my opinion, as far as enforcing the law in it from an equal basis perspective, and these folks just get away with it. And then you have a few bad actors, which were mixed in with leftists on January 6th, by the way. I reported on John Earl Sullivan. He's a BLM Antifa guy that's was seen in pictures in his chat about disguising himself with a Trump hat, actually wearing the hat. But the media won't report on it. They just like to say, January 6th was just a bunch of white supremacists, and smear everybody with the skin color you and I have. Anybody that's been associated with the Oath Keepers or 3%ers of the Proud Boys, they're all just white supremacists, now domestic terrorists, and then they blow up this big threat around the Capitol and those kind of things. But
hey, Colonel, give me 1 second. Let me go grab my computer charger. I just realized it's about to die. Give me 1 second.
Absolutely. While you're gone, we will take some comments here. Here's some comments, folks. Let's see here. John and I were talking about this is just lower standards, lower morale, lower pride in the military, and it weakens America. And that's exactly right. It weakens America. Somebody's comment, Trump should have declared martial law, foreign and domestic threats. Trump should have secured the tech and MSM. I don't think you understand, and maybe this last week of seeing what senior leaders in the United States Armed Forces are doing by taking political positions from government accounts, speaking as from their government positions, very senior, up to the 4-star general level, and the press secretary for the Secretary of Defense. I don't know what Mr. Trump was seeing because I don't have access to his daily intelligence briefing before he left, but he had to know that his position with the military was weak. And I know that's a strange sounding statement from a multi-decade military officer, career person that started out as enlisted in the American Armed Forces, but his position was weak in the armed forces at the senior leader level. The Secretary of Defense before November, Mr. Esper, actually pushed against the president for trying to use the National Guard to stop the insurrection in the summer of last year. And the general in charge of the Joint Chiefs apologized for walking out to look at the damage from St. John's Church when they did finally get some National Guard forces to help federal law enforcement last summer in Washington, D.C. Remember, they tried to attack and almost got through to the White House to the point where the Secret Service had to move the president to his secure location within the building. That's an insurrection, a real one. And Defense Department senior leaders pushed back against the president for trying to defend Washington, D.C. with the National Guard then. It's incredible. What we're seeing today is the mask has been pulled off. The mask has been pulled off, and we are seeing the results of why Mr. Trump didn't declare martial law, because they probably would have disobeyed him. Think about it. Think about it. In Syria, senior civilian leaders and military leaders hid the exact number of troops, by their own admission, from the President of the United States, who's the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces. Ladies and gentlemen, that's just a fact. It's a fact from the individual's own mouth. So the military, and here's Monica Tegeter here. I'm sorry if I butchered your name. A comment about the military should refuse to serve Biden en masse. It's not going to happen, folks. It's not going to happen. Go look at my Twitter feed at Rob Maness, and you'll see I put a tweet out shortly after I saw these senior people in the military using their government accounts. And I'm telling you, Mr. Teigen's back with us now, but I'll finish answering this comment. When I saw that, I put a tweet out that said, every one of these people would be standing at attention before me, getting their court-martial charges, and their people, their troops, would be watching it if I was their commander. And I had the ability and the experience to be able to say that with authority. And the responses to that tweet are incredible, especially from the veterans that are in the leftist woke veteran category. I've even gotten death threats over that tweet, saying that those people that broke the UCMJ and broke policy by attacking the media member, attacking the First Amendment, literally, the Constitution that they swore an oath to defend and support against all enemies, foreign and domestic. I've had death threats because of that tweet. So wow. I hear you, folks, but the President of the United States, 45, was not going to be able to declare martial law, because I don't think he would have had the support for it. And I think they would have actually turned on him and done a military coup based on what we're seeing today. And I can only go with the facts that I'm seeing. John, are you back with us?
I was. Can you hear me? I think I'm frozen.
I can hear you just fine. Your picture's frozen, but
hey, that's a good picture, I guess.
Yeah, I was just going through some of the comments that we get online here, because I'm on 6 channels live, and
Gotcha.
We were talking about a tweet that I sent out to the folks that were attacking Carlson and the First Amendment, the military people, saying, "Hey, if you were under my command, I'd have you standing at attention, and your troops too, while they see me prefer your court-martial charges on you for this craziness." And the attacks that I got from veterans on the left for saying that and wanting to hold these people accountable to follow the Uniform Code of Military Justice for breaking the law included even death threats. So I don't think Mr. Trump was ever going to be able to declare martial law the way a lot of folks have wanted him to do after the election and before January 20th. And it wouldn't have been the right thing to do anyway, I don't believe.
Yeah, I don't think it would have been the right thing to do either. I mean, I kept on getting all these emails, stuff, and obviously, I think you probably saw it too, going on social media platforms, that he signed the Insurrection Act, he'd signed this, did that. It was always like, oh, this date happened. Oh, it was going to be the next day. It was the next one. I think now the new one I saw is something supposed to happen again on the 17th. And it's like, why do people keep buying into this stuff? It's like, he's going to sign, especially the Insurrection Act or even martial law, it's going to happen. He's not going to hold on to it and use it when convenient. You sign it because it's needed. So again, people need to quit buying into this stuff and really really start thinking, more logical than emotional.
Yeah, exactly. I wish the folks that had gone to the ones that got violent on January 6th, I wish they'd have put a little more thought into what their actions were going to be that day, because they've smeared the 500,000 people that were there peacefully to, including the president of the United States, got him impeached again, and kept the public from seeing the actual evidence that was going to be presented by the senators and members of the House of Representatives about the vote issues and the election integrity issues and why this needed to be investigated. But all of that went out the window because a few people decided they were going to go up there and get violent. And I'm still looking for the ATF to figure out who the heck built those pipe bombs and planted them. You see in the video, the individual was even using a cell phone, it looked like, in one of the video streams the FBI's looked at. They've rolled up everybody else by using facial recognition and illegally getting data from the phone companies and banks and those kind of things just to go knock on people's doors that were in the area. But they can't find the folks that planted the pipe bombs. I mean, those are the real, that's a terrorist act. Those individuals, those are the real terrorists. And I don't give a damn what side they're on. You know, it's like this John O'Sullivan guy that was right there where Ashley Babbitt was killed. Ashley Babbitt was the Air Force veteran that was killed. The only person killed by a gunshot on January 6th was killed by someone that had law enforcement responsibilities, and it was a point-blank shot with no warning, and she was surrounded by other officers behind her that knew she wasn't armed.
Yeah, that's one thing that I don't get. Like, you don't really see the media, because if the situation was flipped, they'd be all over this thing saying just that. Well, law enforcement was standing right behind her. Why'd they have to shoot her? If she was such a threat, you'd think the law enforcement would have grabbed her and pulled her back. Again, it's, and the fact that she was going through, regardless if it was what she was doing, she was unarmed. She wasn't really not a real threat, but his first, choice of action was to shoot her in the face.
Exactly. It makes no sense, and it makes no sense that more information hasn't been released about that shoot. She had been black.
Yep, and it'd BLM, and everybody be all up in arms saying that was excessive use of force, which again, it was excessive use of force. But she also put it in my mind. She also put herself there and put her in that situation. It's just like a criminal. A criminal runs from a cop and gets shot. Well, it's your fault. I mean, you ran or you fought with the cop, or you put yourself there. So I mean, it's unfortunate that she did get shot, but are they going to push to defund the Capitol Police now? No, they won't, because of who they shot. And that's all it comes down to. It doesn't why they got shot, just who they shot. Again,
there's a push to give them millions of more dollars, hundreds of millions of more dollars now in the Capitol Police. So yeah, they're not going to defund those guys, and they're wrong to try to defund other police departments too.
They are.
Nobody's saying that there aren't bad shoots against black people or any person of any skin color or from any economic background. There are. They happen. They have to be investigated, and people have to be held accountable. But I would expect that Black Lives Matter would be up in arms about the Babbitt shoot as much as they are any other questionable law enforcement shoot of a known unarmed individual, whether protesting or not. And it's sad that they have not spoken out on that. I don't care what color somebody's skin is. If I think something's a bad shoot, and I've done it before publicly, and will continue to do that, I'm going to call the police out. I don't have a problem doing that, but most of the time, there's a reason why these kind of things happen, like the crazy guy that picked up the knife again up in Wisconsin and got himself shot in the back 7 times. A knife is as dangerous as a firearm when police officers are facing an attacker with a knife. Folks need to understand that and do a little research on tactics and using knives up against armed firearm personnel, because it's actually can be very effective. Isn't that right?
Oh, it is. It's very effective. And again, the distance that takes account as well. You can close with somebody within 10 feet within seconds. Yeah. Within 20 feet within seconds. I mean, what the 440? I mean, people can run, that in 4 seconds, 5 seconds. So again, that's
right.
And some people, some law enforcement, unfortunately, their training sucks, or they don't do any training at all because they don't have the time because they got 3 jobs because the pay sucks. But some of them can't even draw within 1 or 2 seconds, and again, they're reacting. They're not waiting for this guy to rush them. So they usually they have their gun up, but that's that one in Wisconsin. You're talking about the one with the mom and the 2 cops, and the guy kept coming in at him.
Yep. And he picked his knife back up after he dropped it.
Yeah. So again, it's
all the riots.
Yeah, it's and then you got the autonomous zone now. In the George Floyd's freaking memorial. Again, that goes back to the lack of leadership, man. And this country's going to hell in a handbasket really fast. I mean, I fear for my kids.
Absolutely. I fear for it. We've got a comment here I want to address. I don't know what you think, but Lynn Matthews asks, are you implying the military under this hostile administration is taking over like in foreign countries? No, absolutely I'm not. What I'm saying is this military is politically aligned with this administration that's hostile, and they are being hostile to members of the media that criticize them and their military policies or them and any other policy. As seen with what these folks did that were in uniform on government accounts that are 4-star generals and below, senior leaders in the United States Armed Forces attacking the First Amendment, the press part of the First Amendment and the speech part, because they didn't like what they said. And then these Guard members from Guam, so American National Guardsmen and women, marching on a congressman's office in the Capitol in uniform, that's unconscionable in the United States of America. It's unconscionable.
And again, they should definitely, every single one of them need to be held accountable because they know, I mean, I knew as a private, you weren't allowed to do anything like that, anything political whatsoever, especially in uniform. You can go to rallies and stuff like that, but man, you could not do it in uniform. Yeah, I knew that from an E1. You're taught that in boot camp.
You can call them out on your personal Facebook page, Twitter account. I don't care. Call Tucker Carlson out all you want in that capacity, but not in an official capacity. That's absolutely wrong, especially using propaganda created by the leftist media, the woke crowd that you happen to agree with, and you do it from your government account. That's just absolutely that is court-martial material right there, and they better be held accountable. But I'll tell you what we've heard from President Biden and Secretary of Defense Austin and Chairman Milley, crickets.
Yep.
Absolute crickets.
It's not surprising. It really isn't.
It should be surprising, though. Especially when the party that's really harped on the civilian control of the military piece for all of my lifetime anyway, is in power. But they happen to agree with them. So, and they're comfortable with them. But when somebody gets in power that turns on them and shows up in their offices wearing a military uniform, it'll be a different story, I'm sure.
Yeah, the military needs to stay out of politics, man. That's not their job. It's not anywhere in their course of fire at all. I mean, they need to remove themselves completely out of politics.
Yeah. Well, John, I want to touch on one more area that I think you're an expert in. You mentioned the rally was it in Colorado Springs or Denver?
It was in Denver.
Where the veteran was killed by a guy that was unlicensed, brought in by media for security, and was unlicensed and had been seen at Antifa and BLM riots and those kind of things before. So, but a lot of folks are asking me, I think I get this question at least 10 times a day from just average citizens that know that they can get in touch with me directly. And they go, what can we do to protect ourselves? The National Guard is supposed to be the modern militia that gets called out to protect us and our communities. And, my comment is, I tell them 2 things. You know what? Exercise your right to keep and bear arms. Train as part of that one thing. And then talk to your neighbors. Have a defense plan for your community. Know who's got firearms, how to get a hold of them. And that's about the extent of what I tell folks, because of this situation with like Oath Keepers and 3%ers, and everybody gets smeared as something that they're not. They're just concerned about defending their families and their neighborhoods and their homes and their property. But I think you've been doing some work in that area of organization, haven't you?
Yeah, it kind of kicked off a little bit last year around June. The idea kind of popped in my head, and took me a month or two to actually get it going. And it's called United American Defense Force, or UADF for short. And I base it more off humanitarian organization. We're not teaching a lot of things that these other groups, they'll go out and they'll teach military tactics and stuff like that. I'm not doing any of that. Our biggest thing, we're teaching people weapons, how to actually, shoot and stuff like that. We're not teaching tactics. Doing crowd control stuff. Because again, you saw what was happening, like in Portland and some other areas, the towns were destroyed because the police were outnumbered. You had some groups that were going out there trying to stand the line, but they were getting beat back. I mean, there's times that even the Proud Boys got beat back because they're not really they weren't trained as a group. So, we do crowd control training to kind of train, just every walks of life. You don't have to be military or a cop. You got some older people. Again, I don't care how old you are, how young you are. If you want to come and protect the community, we'll give you the tools and know how to do it. So you got to be able to work as a team to do it. Because otherwise, you'll go out there, like some of these groups do, and you'll get pushed off the side. Next thing you know, you're getting beat up by 5 guys when you have 5 of your fellow people beating up on one guy, unfortunately. I mean, it's been happening. I've been watching the videos of it. We've been going out since last year when we know the protesters are potentially going to be violent. It's not to shut down the protests, it's to shut down the violence. I mean, we stood back and, there was protests going on, nothing going on. We ain't going to do anything, but if they start getting violent like they were in the neighborhoods here, we rolled in, they found out we were coming, they would leave. So again, I don't care. We don't care if you protest. Nobody should care if you protest, but you have no right to start looting and getting violent, beating up, business owners because they're trying to protect their business from being destroyed. Because you think insurance is going to pay for it, which a lot of times insurance ain't going to pay for it if it's considered a riot. So, people need to realize that a lot of these, especially these small mom and pop shops, they get destroyed once, they're done. That's their whole livelihood right there. You just destroyed, and they're doing it to their own people in their own community. So, we started this, we've done a couple searches for people. I wouldn't call search and rescue. It's more like just stand up and do searches for missing people. We've done toy drives, food drives, just again, whatever we can do to try to help the community and get people to actually come together and know each other. Like you're saying, know your neighbor, know who can stand with you if something happens, either man-made or natural disasters. I mean, do you know what to do? If a major blizzard comes in and just destroys your own neighborhood, a fire comes in, do you know where to go and meet up with people, that are in your neighborhood? Or again, a big protest starts rolling through like they do up in DC, they did in Portland, they did up in Fort Collins, they do up in Seattle,
Minneapolis.
Minneapolis. Again, they have the autonomous zone where, George Floyd is. There's a whole neighborhood now that cops are not allowed in. Cops cannot go in.
It's incredible.
There's crime going on in there, So again, it's, if we as, people say, well, again, the military, the National Guard is our organized militia. No, they're there again. They're only really responding when it's already hours too late, unless like here in Colorado, we had the major storm come through, which they knew was going to happen. You don't know when the riot's going to happen. So it takes the National Guard about 24 hours to respond for the most part, and that's going to be fast. So again, the George Floyd stuff, when that happened, I mean, it clicked off like that. You had Mr. Brown got shot in the back, even though he had a knife, it happened just like that. In Kenosha, again, drop of a hat, it happens. So again, if you yourself aren't prepared with, like-minded individuals who actually come together and train together and know how to protect each other in your community, sitting there saying, I got 20 friends, but if you guys don't actually go and do anything and learn how to work together in a high stress situation, you're gonna be screwed. You're gonna get your asses beat or shot, because now they're carrying guns. I mean, look at the now I forgot what they're called. Not NFA whatever. That new, almost like Black Panthers group. You know, they're pretty much shooting each other, but you know they're going out and trained. You know, what are they asking? They're asking for the state of Texas. That's what they.
Yeah, and that's a militia group that's supposedly made up of former veterans, but the only people they've hurt so far is they shot themselves. Some of their own members up in Kentucky, I believe it was. But you know what? If folks need to defend themselves in their neighborhoods, I don't have a problem with people organizing to be able to do that. And as a matter of fact, your organization, it's called United American Defense Force. Yep. Correct, John?
Yes,
I found it today because I had heard you were in this, you were organizing these kinds of things, and I liked what I saw, so I signed up for it, folks. United American Defense Force. What's the website for that?
UnitedADF.com.
Okay, UnitedADF.com, folks. If you want to. Go ahead.
Just talk a little bit about it. So, you know, it is a membership based fee, because I'd rather have people that want to be part of a group than just who just want to join just to have a name or be associated with something. Everybody goes through a background check. The membership fee, it's a $20 member fee, $20 a month member fee. And it also comes with the U.S. Law Shield, which protects you if you use any kind of force to defend yourself or someone else. Again, it doesn't have to do with weapons or guns. It's just anything that you use to defend yourself. It could be your belt and somebody takes you to court. Again, it's there to help protect you, because I wanted that to be with members, because when we do go out there and if we end up getting into a confrontation with individuals, I want to make sure that you have the protection so you don't lose your home or anything else. Because the legal fees could get a lot, but this kind of gives you a little bit of that extra comfort to where you won't second guess yourself in defending yourself or someone else. And so on top of that, the reason we did the background checks is we're slowly starting to get into the human training portion of it, where we'll be actually going out and rescuing a lot of these people who are being trafficked. It's pretty much slavery is really the easiest way to say it, because that's what they are. They're pretty much slaves.
That's what it is.
So we'll be going in there and helping out with them, extracting them, medical, transportation, all kinds of stuff. So that's slowly going to start coming online as we start. We partnered with another organization that has 15 organizations part of it that do the human trafficking. So it's going to be a pretty good organization. UADF is, again, just protecting the community as a whole is what we have to do. And it's just not about, again, rioting and stuff like that. It's about just protecting us as a whole.
Absolutely. I mean, it's I would like to see folks from poverty-stricken communities be able to join the organization. As John mentioned, it took me about 15 minutes to go through the process today to pay my initial fee and pay for the background check and fill out the forms for the background check. And then you just hit a button and it goes off and it says, hey, we'll get back to you and let you know what we uncover. If anything, there shouldn't be anything on my part, because I've been pretty much a Boy Scout most of the time, except for my mouth. I don't have a problem since I became a civilian calling out politicians for being corrupt and those kinds of things. But, folks, if you want to get some training, if you want to join an organization that's really is about, as John said, and this is why I signed up, because I saw it in the organization. It's about getting to know your neighbors and know who is capable of doing what and those kinds of things. Do it now in some organization like this. And as Mr. Teigen said, this is not about just riots and those kind of things, but when a hurricane comes through and wipes out the neighborhood, there's still things that are worth things in your neighborhood or your house, and you want to be ready. You want to be ready, because the National Guard and the police and all of those so-called first responders, which are great people, 99.9%, they're great people and they care about you and everything, but sometimes they just can't get there from here in a very quick amount of time, and you need to be able to protect yourself and your family and your property and your neighbors. You need to be able to work together. That's what the founding of America was all about anyway, and we appreciate it. So we'll end with this one. John. Steph Lee, the military is the last line of defense for citizens against political action that infringes on the rights of the people. It's clear that the political leanings of military leadership is a greater threat to the liberties of our nation than any signature or anything else. And I can't disagree with that. It's possible that it could be a great threat to our country because they shouldn't be involved in political commentary. They shouldn't be involved in attacking the press. They shouldn't be involved in attacking a citizen for making a suggestion like, hey, focus on China instead of this Carlson guy. He's not worth it. But and I'll give you the last word. You can tell folks how to sign up again for the United American Defense Force. But if you want to really be ready and be confident and comfortable with where things are at, no matter what happens around you in the country, and I know a lot of people are scared, well, prepare yourself and train and get with folks that understand what's going on and how to get you ready for that if you don't feel ready already, and join the United American Defense Force. I just did it today because I like what I saw. And I'm very interested in this human trafficking thing. I live in a part of the country that around the New Orleans and Baton Rouge area that has a huge trafficking problem, especially around major sports events like the Super Bowl.
Yeah, it's very it's definitely high during the big events, even the Olympics, same thing. But again, it's. So as we start growing, obviously we're just an infant organization. We're still kind of crawling. So as we start growing, we still need people to actually stand up in those states to be leaders. Otherwise, we can't do anything in that state. Because I can't run Louisiana from Colorado. It needs to be somebody who knows Louisiana, knows South Carolina, California, because we got members in these other states, but nobody wants to stand up and start it. Unfortunately, we got a lot of the stuff to help you get it going. But, again, we don't have the funds to send trainers to you. You have to find people to help you train. We have the curriculums for stuff and the layout and how to train. That way, again, if we ever come together, we all know how to work together, because we're all trained. We have the same idea how to operate. So that's why it's going to be done that way. But again, go to United ADF, UnitedADF.com to sign up. And, again, just don't think of this as Amazon. It's not an overnight operation. So it's going to take a little bit of time. We've only been fully functional for a few months now, and we still got our hiccups. We're redoing the website. So it's a little bit more user friendly, a little bit smarter. So it's going to take time. I'm learning as I go. I didn't have a business plan. I just had an idea and I ran with it. And so here we are.
That's the way good things get started in this country. Is start with an idea, start running.
Yep.
So I appreciate you coming on, John. Appreciate your service to the country, both in uniform and out of uniform. It's a big deal to have the opportunity to have you talk to our viewers, and we certainly have enjoyed the conversation. And it's all about being straightforward and upfront, folks. That this is what you've got to do. John's got experience in it. I've got experience in it. We are grateful for your viewership every week, and we want you to be comfortable in your own country and comfortable in your own neighborhoods, and be able to take care of yourselves when that government entity, whatever it is, can't show up or doesn't show up.
Yep. We're our own first responders.
Have a great one, John. Thank you very much.
Good luck.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's it for today on the Rob Maness Show. Our guest was John Tig Teagan, a survivor of the Benghazi fiasco, but he was one of the people that stood up and took charge, even though his bosses didn't want him to do it, and saved a lot of lives and got those folks out of there. So we certainly appreciate that. I appreciate your viewership today. Thank you very much. As usual, we will be back next week, same time, same day, with the Rob Maness Show live. Don't forget that the show publishes at robmaness.com and lifeset.com on Thursdays if you didn't get to see us live. And we appreciate your feedback and your comments. Please watch this video ad from our sponsor. The book is The Road to Americanism, and we certainly appreciate Dennis Haw, the author of that book, for writing it and showing that we do have Americans capable of teaching our kids and us what really happened. Thanks again. I'm retired Colonel Rob Maness. Your kids and grandkids are being taught to hate America in public schools using flawed ideas like the 16 Project. You can provide an antidote to this disease hate for all America stands for. It's Dennis Haw's The Road to Americanism. You can make sure our young people learn to love America and become the citizens we need to protect her future. Order The Road to Americanism on Amazon.com right now.